Elena stood at the edge of the marble hall, her fingers curled tightly into the silk of her borrowed wedding dress. Everything about the mansion screamed power, cold stone, armed men, silence heavy enough to crush breath. This wasn't a wedding. It was a transaction. When Dante Romano entered, the room shifted. He didn't rush. He didn't smile. Tall, dark, impeccably dressed, he carried danger the way other men carried charm. His eyes, sharp and assessing, paused on her for a fraction too long, making heat crawl up her spine despite her fear. "So this is the girl they offered," he said calmly. Elena lifted her chin. "I'm not an offering." One corner of his mouth twitched, almost amused. He stepped closer, invading her space deliberately. She could smell him, leather, smoke, something undeniably masculine. Her pulse betrayed her, fluttering wildly. "This marriage exists to pay a debt," Dante said quietly. "Nothing more. I don't want a wife. I don't want a family." His gaze dropped briefly to her lips before returning to her eyes. "And I don't touch what I don't intend to keep." The words should have comforted her. Instead, disappointment flickered somewhere deep and unwelcome. The vows were quick, cold. When he slid the ring onto her finger, his touch lingered, just a second too long. Electricity shot through her hand and she saw it then, the tightening of his jaw, the restraint in his grip. That night, she was escorted to the master bedroom. One bed. Massive. Imposing. Dante removed his jacket slowly, deliberately, as if daring her to look away. She didn't. She couldn't. The tension thickened until it was almost painful. "You will sleep here," he said. "You will be safe. And you will not mistake my self-control for weakness." He turned off the light and lay beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, smell his skin, sense the desire he refused to acknowledge. Elena stared into the darkness, her body burning, her future sealed. She had been forced to marry the devil. And disturbingly, the devil wanted her too. Elena quickly learned that silence was Dante Romano's favorite weapon. Days passed with military precision. Breakfasts taken apart. Dinners endured under the watchful eyes of guards and staff who pretended not to notice the tension crackling between husband and wife. Dante barely spoke to her, yet he always noticed her. The way her dress clung too softly to her curves. The way her breath hitched whenever he moved too close. At night, the distance between them vanished. They shared the same bed, divided only by an invisible line neither dared to cross. Dante lay on his back, one arm behind his head, relaxed yet alert. Elena lay stiffly beside him, every nerve awake, painfully aware of his presence. His body radiated heat, authority, temptation. She could feel him shift sometimes, restless, controlled. Once, in the dark, her fingers brushed his arm by accident. The contact was brief, innocent, and devastating. Dante inhaled sharply. "Don't," he warned quietly. The word lingered in the air like a threat, and a plea. Elena pulled her hand back, her heart pounding. "I didn't mean to. I know." His voice was lower now, rougher. "That's the problem." Sleep refused to come. The bed felt too small. Every movement echoed with meaning. When she turned onto her side, her back faced him, and somehow that was worse. She felt his presence closer now, felt the slow, deliberate rhythm of his breathing. "Why marry me?" she whispered before she could stop herself. "If you hate this so much?" He was silent for a long moment. "I don't hate this," he said finally. "I hate wanting things I don't need." His hand flexed once against the sheets. So close. Too close. Elena swallowed. Desire curled low in her stomach, unwelcome and undeniable. She had been sold, traded, claimed, but no one had warned her about this aching pull between them. Dante turned slightly, his face inches from hers in the darkness. She couldn't see his eyes, but she felt them on her. "This marriage will never give you love," he said softly. "Or children. Or promises." His breath brushed her cheek. "But if you keep looking at me like that," he added, controlled yet strained, "I won't be able to keep my word." Elena closed her eyes, her body trembling, not with fear. With what? And somewhere in the dark, Dante Romano fought a battle he was already losing. The gunshot wound was shallow, they said. Not life-threatening. Still, when Dante stumbled into the bedroom that night with blood darkening his shirt, Elena's heart lurched painfully. "Sit," she ordered, surprising them both. He allowed it, perhaps because pain stripped away pride. She knelt before him, hands trembling as she cleaned the wound. His skin was hot beneath her fingers, hard with restrained strength. Every brush of her touch made his breath change, grow heavier. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. I want to, she replied, her voice barely steady. Their eyes locked. Something dangerous cracked open between them. When she finished, she started to pull away, but Dante's hand closed around her wrist. Firm. Certain. Possessive. Elena, he warned, voice rough. She should have stepped back. Instead, she leaned forward, her lips hovering just above his skin. The kiss she pressed there was soft, tentative, yet it shattered the last of his control. Dante rose abruptly, pulling her against him. The kiss that followed was nothing like the first, hungry, claiming, filled with everything he had denied himself. His hands explored as if memorizing her, as if this moment would be the only one he ever allowed. She gasped against his mouth, fingers gripping his shirt as desire surged through her like fire. This changes nothing, he said between kisses, as if trying to convince himself. I can't give you. I don't want promises, she whispered. Just this. That was all it took. That night, the cold walls of the mansion bore witness to a passion neither of them expected. Dante was intense, commanding, yet unexpectedly gentle, as if afraid she might disappear if he held her too tightly. When it was over, he lay beside her in silence, staring at the ceiling. By morning the walls were back up. Dante was distant again. Controlled. Untouchable. Elena lay awake long after he left the room, her body aching, her heart confused. She told herself it had been a mistake. A single night. A moment of weakness. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night had already changed everything. Elena woke to cold sheets and silence. Dante was gone. For a moment, she wondered if the night before had been a dream, until she felt it. The dull, aching awareness of her body. The memory of his hands, his mouth, the way he had said her name like it mattered. Shame and longing tangled inside her chest. At breakfast, Dante was already seated at the head of the table, immaculate as ever. Suit pressed. Expression unreadable. The man from the night before might as well have been someone else entirely. Good morning, she said softly. He didn't look up. Eat. The dismissal stung more than anger would have. Days followed in a strange, careful rhythm. Dante avoided being alone with her, but his control slipped in small, dangerous ways. His eyes lingered when he thought she wasn't watching. His hand brushed her waist when passing in the hall, always accidental, always lingering a heartbeat too long. At night it was worse. They lay inches apart, bodies remembering what their minds pretended to forget. Elena felt him shift beside her, felt the tension radiating from him like heat from a flame. Sometimes his breathing would change, deepen, and she would hold hers, afraid to move. One night, she turned toward him without thinking. Their faces were close. Too close. This was a mistake, Dante said quietly. Then why does it feel like you're punishing yourself more than me? She whispered. His jaw tightened. Because wanting you is dangerous. For who? She asked. For both of us. He reached out as if to touch her, then stopped, hand hovering in the air before dropping back to the bed. The restraint in that single motion was more intimate than any kiss. Elena turned away, her body burning with unsatisfied need. Dante stared at the ceiling, every muscle rigid. They said nothing more. But the silence between them throbbed with desire, regret, and a hunger neither of them could erase. And somewhere deep inside Elena, something had already begun to change, quietly, invisibly, binding her to Dante in a way neither of them yet understood. The sickness began quietly. At first, Elena blamed the heavy breakfasts, the tension that never truly left her chest. But when the nausea returned each morning, sharp, sudden, undeniable, unease crept in. Sense turned unbearable. Food she once loved made her stomach twist. Dante noticed before she said a word. You're pale, he said one evening, his gaze sharpening as she pushed her plate away untouched. I'm fine, she lied. He wasn't convinced. That night, she barely made it to the bathroom before retching. When she straightened, breathless and shaken, Dante was there, silent, commanding, impossibly close. His hand came to her back, firm and grounding. You should have told me, he said. The concern in his voice unsettled her more than the nausea. I didn't want, she stopped, unsure how to finish. Didn't want his attention? His control? His touch? Too late. He guided her to the bed, sitting beside her, his presence overwhelming. His palm rested on her thigh, innocent, protective, yet her body reacted instantly, heat blooming where he touched her. This doesn't change anything, he murmured, more to himself than to her. I don't do attachments. Then why are you here? She asked softly. His eyes darkened. Because I can't stop myself. The word sent a dangerous thrill through her. For a moment, The air between them pulsed with unspoken need. Dante leaned in, his forehead resting against hers, breath warm, controlled, but strained. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Then make it stop," she challenged gently. "You didn't?" Instead, he pulled back abruptly, standing as if distance were the only thing keeping him sane. "See a doctor tomorrow," he ordered. "That's not a request." When he left, Elena lay awake, her hand resting unconsciously on her stomach. Confusion warred with fear, and something else. Something fragile and hopeful she was afraid to name. Her body was changing. And if her instincts were right, the truth would shatter everything Dante Romano believed about himself, and about her. The doctor's office smelled of antiseptic and quiet dread. Elena sat on the edge of the examination bed, fingers knotted together, heart pounding so loudly she was sure Dante could hear it. He stood near the window, arms crossed, his presence dominating the small room. Controlled. Impenetrable. Until the doctor cleared her throat. "The results are clear," she said gently. "You're pregnant." The word landed like a gunshot. Elena's breath caught. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, shock and wonder crashing through her at once. Dante turned slowly. "That's impossible," he said, voice dangerously calm. The doctor hesitated. "Medically speaking." "Impossible," he repeated, cutting her off. His eyes locked onto Elena's, dark with something sharp and furious. "Leave us." When they were alone, silence stretched, thick, suffocating. "You want to explain this?" he asked coldly. Elena stood, her legs trembling. "I've only ever been with you." His jaw clenched. "I was told I can't have children." "I didn't plan this," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "I didn't even think it could happen." Dante laughed once, low, bitter. "So you expect me to believe this is mine?" The accusation sliced through her. "You know what we shared," she said, voice shaking. "You felt it. You know I wouldn't." "Enough." He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Rage rolled off him in waves. "You've humiliated me." Her chest ached. "I loved you that night," she said softly, the confession slipping out before she could stop it. That made him freeze. Slowly he faced her again. His eyes burned, not with hatred but conflict. "If that child isn't mine," he said quietly, "it will destroy us both." Elena swallowed hard. "And if it is?" His gaze dropped to her stomach. For the briefest moment, something cracked. Fear, longing, disbelief. Then the walls slammed back into place. "Until I know the truth," Dante said coldly, "this changes nothing." But as he walked out, his hand trembled at his side. And Elena knew, no matter how fiercely he denied it, the truth had already begun to unravel him. Dante didn't come to their bed that night. Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling, one hand curled protectively over her stomach, her heart breaking in slow, painful pieces. His words echoed in her mind: humiliation, betrayal, impossible. Each one cut deeper than the last. By morning the mansion felt colder. Dante locked himself away in his private study, summoning old names, forgotten doctors, men who owed him truths instead of loyalty. His control was slipping, and that terrified him more than the pregnancy ever could. By evening the lie unraveled. The original medical files had been altered. Dates changed. Results falsified. "You were never sterile," the elderly doctor confessed, sweat beading on his brow. "Someone paid to make sure you believed you were." Dante's hands curled into fists. A memory surfaced. His former fiancée, tears, manipulation, the convenient timing of her betrayal. The diagnosis had broken something inside him back then. It had made him cruel, careless, afraid of wanting more. And Elena had paid the price. He went to her room just after midnight. She was sitting on the bed, wrapped in silk, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked fragile, tired, beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. "You knew," she said softly when she saw his face. "Didn't you?" "I was lied to," he said hoarsely. "And I believed it." She stood slowly. "So now what?" Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping inches from her. His hands hovered at her waist, not touching, asking permission without words. "The child is mine," he said. There was never any doubt. Only fear. Tears slid down her cheeks. "You broke me." "I know." His voice cracked. "And I would burn the world to undo it." He pulled her into his chest, holding her like something precious, irreplaceable. She felt his breath against her hair, felt the tremor he no longer hid. When his lips brushed her forehead, it wasn't hunger this time. It was devotion. And for the first time Elena felt it. Dante Romano wasn't afraid of losing power anymore. He was afraid of losing her. The first threat arrived at dawn. A bullet shattered the front gate, embedded with a message meant to be understood without words. By noon, the mansion was surrounded by twice the guards. By nightfall, Dante had not let Elena out of his sight once. "You don't leave this wing," he said firmly, fastening a protective bracelet around her wrist, his mark. "Not without me." "I'm not a prisoner," she said, though her voice trembled. "No," he replied, his thumb brushing over her pulse. "You're everything they want to take from me." The way he said it made her breath hitch. That night Dante stayed with her, truly stayed. He helped her undress slowly, reverently, as if her body carried something sacred. His hands lingered at her waist, his touch grounding, claiming, protective. "I should have shielded you sooner," he murmured against her skin. "I won't fail again." She turned into him, pressing her forehead to his chest. "Then don't push me away." His answer was a kiss, deep, unrestrained, burning with intent. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was ownership wrapped in devotion. His hands explored with certainty, reminding her who she belonged to, and who belonged to her. Every touch said mine. Every breath said stay. When he laid her back against the pillows, he hovered above her, eyes dark with hunger and promise. "This child," he said softly, "is my heir. And you are my wife, not by force. By choice." She reached for him, fingers sliding into his hair. "Then choose me," she whispered. He did. Later, as she slept curled against his side, Dante stayed awake, one arm wrapped protectively around her, the other resting over her stomach. His empire had many enemies, but none would touch what was his. Not his wife. Not his child. And as danger closed in, one truth became unshakable. Anyone who tried to take Elena from him would not live long enough to regret it. The ambush came without warning. Elena was halfway down the corridor when the first explosion rocked the east wing. The force knocked her off her feet, pain flashing through her body as alarms screamed to life. Smoke filled the air. Shouts echoed, guards, orders, chaos. "Elena." Dante's voice cut through everything. She pushed herself up, heart hammering, fear clawing at her chest, not for herself but for the child inside her. A shadow moved through the smoke, a gun raised. The shot never came. Dante slammed into the attacker with lethal force, shielding Elena with his body as bullets tore into the walls. He moved like a storm, precise, merciless, terrifying. When it was over, the corridor was silent except for Elena's sobbing breath. Dante dropped to his knees in front of her, hands gripping her face, searching frantically. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears spilling freely now. "I thought I lost you." His control shattered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly it almost hurt, his breath ragged against her hair. "Never," he said hoarsely. "I would burn this world before leaving you unprotected." She looked up at him, her fingers trembling as they brushed the blood on his collar. "I don't want a contract anymore," she whispered. "I want you." Dante pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closing. When he kissed her, it was raw and desperate, nothing restrained, nothing denied. His hands cradled her as if she were the only real thing left in his life. "I love you," he said, the words sounding torn from somewhere deep and unguarded. "I tried to bury it. I failed." Her answering kiss was soft, certain. "Good." Later, wrapped together in the quiet aftermath, Dante lay with Elena against his chest, his hands spread protectively over her stomach. The scent of smoke still clung to the air, but inside the room there was only warmth and truth. Love hadn't made Dante Romano weak. It had made him ruthless in a new way. Anyone who came for his family now wasn't just challenging a mafia boss. They were challenging a man with everything to lose, and nothing left to fear. The birth came on a quiet night, the kind of night that felt almost impossible after weeks of chaos, fear, and bloodshed. Elena's cries echoed through the mansion as Dante refused to leave her side, holding her hand, whispering strength into her trembling body. When their child finally cried, Dante's face, so often cold, unyielding, softened in a way that no enemy, no betrayal had ever managed. He leaned close, tears glinting in the harsh light of the delivery room. "It's ours," he breathed, voice breaking. Elena, exhausted and radiant, laughed through her tears. "Ours?" she repeated. "You finally believe me." He held the tiny bundle, tracing the delicate features of their child as if memorizing every line. "You survived. We survived. And nothing will ever take you from me again." The mansion, the empire, the danger, it all seemed smaller now. For the first time, Dante allowed himself to imagine a future not ruled by contracts, fear, or revenge. He kissed Elena's forehead, then whispered against her hair, "You're not just my wife. You're my queen." Elena's hand brushed against his cheek. "And you're more than a boss. You're mine." Outside, the world continued in its ruthless way. Enemies still lurked. Rival families still plotted. But inside their room, Dante and Elena were untouchable. The child stirred, tiny fingers curling around Elena's. Dante's chest tightened. "We'll protect them," he vowed. "No one will harm our family." Elena smiled, laying her head on his shoulder. "I think we're already unstoppable." Dante pulled her close, the weight of power, passion, and love combining into a single, unshakable truth. What had begun as a forced marriage, born from duty and fear, had transformed into something eternal, something stronger than any empire. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring the warmth, the victory, and the family they had built together. And in the quiet of the night, with their child sleeping peacefully, Dante Romano, once feared, once untouchable, finally understood what it meant to love, to protect, and to be truly claimed.